Well, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome back to the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup Series. This is the EU series of races. We head to round 7. We've only got 4 races left here on the season as we head into the night at Road Atlanta. It's David Christie here with you once again, and as always joining me in the commentary box. A very good evening to David Russell. David, we've suitably recovered after the madness that was Donington, but this is going to be something else completely. Road Atlanta in the night, and from the looks of it, quite a few drivers deciding to sit this one out.
Yeah, good evening, David. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all doing well on this Tuesday evening. Yeah, it's I've just about recovered. I think I recovered a short while earlier this afternoon because that was there was 2 fantastic races, wasn't there? Battling from start to finish, exactly what we kind of come to expect from these sprint race formats these days. But back to the endurance layout, so 75 minutes. 2 pit stops around a track that is sure to produce a lot of action, especially with that nice big long back straight into turns 10A and 10B. Going to be really excited for this one, and going into the night makes it a little bit more difficult for us to identify exactly who everyone is, but it certainly looks rather pretty under the lights.
Yep, certainly is. So based in the heart of Georgia, this is, of course, the home of the world-famous Petit Le Mans, the 10-hour, 1,000-mile event. We won't be going anywhere near that tonight, thankfully, but it'll be just as thrilling, I can absolutely guarantee you. Looks like we've got around about 6 cars in each class taking part tonight to make up a field of around about 18 drivers to maybe 20 drivers. We'll double-check on that one, but as you see there, it looks like we've got about 6 in the Pro class, about 7 in the AM class, and about another 7 in the Pro Am class as well. The big stories, of course, David, coming from last week at Donington then, is the fact that quite a lot of penalties, but very little in terms of action taken, apart from poor Dan Sedgley. I say poor, but really I think he's lucky that he didn't get hung to the gallows after accelerating straight back out onto the track and causing a pretty wild accident.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw Dan Handover, didn't we, who was, of course, the recipient of said incident at Watkins Glen a few weeks back, do exactly the same thing. Well, same but kind of different. Didn't hold his brakes, reversed almost back onto the circuit, and then obviously caused quite an intense pile-up. Dan Sedgley obviously just took out Handover, but still, yeah, the stewards are going to look at that harshly. They're going to give him the DQ, which they have done. So he loses any points he would have potentially got from that race, but otherwise, yeah, like you say, leniency is probably the way I would put it. I think, obviously, looking back through them, most of the incidents, I think they're probably fair to say there were no further action, a few racing incidents here and there. But yeah, fortunately, nothing too much coming does mean that, of course, the points are still looking pretty juicy. And one person that I'm keeping a very keen eye on, and I've seen him putting in some rather decent times in the practice server as well, is that of Francois Aldrini. He really seems to have kind of come into a bout of form over the last few weeks. Obviously, remember, he was our tip for doing very well at the start of the season in that pre-qualifying event at Le Mans, and he didn't start off too well, but he seems to be finding a bit of pace again and putting the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit for the top of that Pro Championship.
It certainly is. So let's have a look at the point standings as they are coming into this round then, and we'll start off with the Pro. It's Vince Peters currently at the top of the tables there, 518 points from Nick Maidson on 479 points, 439 for Francois Aldrini. So again, he's about 80 points off, maybe 79 points off of your championship leader just now. Bassi Maitler in 4th position, Arias Humantis in 5th, Laurent Benzo in 6th, Buruven Kuster in 7th, Thomas Gurlian in 8th place, Dan Kell in 9th, Senny Lansens in 10th, Oscar Wilkins in 11th, Dennis Van Asch in 12th, Maxim van de Hove in 13th, Johan Royer in 14th position, and we'll go through them more later on, because here is confirmation of your grid for our feature race tonight. Then Thomas Gurlian takes pole position for the Pro class ahead of Laurent Benzo, both of them on row 1. Arias Humantis and Francois Aldrini is going to be more sparks and more fireworks from them. They start on row 2. Row 3 is going to be Nick Maidson and Vince Peters 5th and 6th place. Vince Peters a lot less work to do tonight, but he's still going to be made to work for it. Moving on to the Pro-Ams, James Fierro is alongside Harry Wills at the front of the Pro-Am grid, with Dan Sedgley and Steve Martin on row 2. Row 3 is going to be Corey Pride and Igor Kos. It was an amazing time out at Donington. Just very quickly, 2 wins out of 2 for Pro-Am for Cody Pride. Excellent stuff there, looking to make more of the same. Stuart Reynolds in 7th place for Pro-Am. Dean Timms and Simon Underhill on the front row of the Am, and then it's Dan Gilding with Eric Benson on row 2. Row 3 is Jason Dilworth and Ryan Hamilton, and then Chris Chatterton at the back of the Am grids. Again, 20 cars taking part in tonight's race, and any other league would be rather happy to have that sort of a turnout for a night's racing, and we are certainly happy with that nonetheless. So, as we said, 2.5 miles here at Road Atlanta. David, what sort of a challenge do you think this circuit is going to prove for these drivers?
Well, look, I know we've said it plenty of times, and I'm sure over the next 4 rounds, including tonight as well, we'll mention how these cars are a bit on a knife edge at the best of times. With the right setup, they're very easy to handle, but any slight differences in those, it can make it quite a difficult beast to tame in this Porsche Cup car. But going down the hill easy, going through the first couple of turns, up and down the hill, there's those undulations to be aware of. This is one of those tracks where, for those of you who've never driven it before, you'll get that ability to extend on some corners. You'll see them coming into T5 in just a second. They've got the ability to go wide, but it's one of those tracks that if you get something wrong, you're going to be very quickly off of the momentum of the rest of the track. And if you can get good exits out of T7, for example, then with the slipstream they're going to be getting, similar to what we saw at Watkins Glen, there's going to be some definite overtaking opportunities coming into to T10, T10A and 10B. So yeah, really looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting to see how the guys get on. Getting their tyres warm early doors now is going to be key. Obviously, a lot colder now, it's the night race. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit more treacherous in the first couple of laps, but we know these guys now. They know what they're doing. They're pretty quick. They've got their head on a swivel. And yeah, hopefully we see lots of action and not too many people off the track at this point this evening.
I think plenty of action is absolutely guaranteed here at Road Atlanta. And of course, the great thing is that none of the corners have any names whatsoever. So it's turn 1 to all the way through to turn 12 as well. And turn 11 actually, turn 12 a little bit redundant, but turn 11, that sweeping downhill right-hander, that's going to catch quite a few cars out as well, as the you can see picture in picture there, the pro cars making their way through the back half of the circuit. This is on the run down, I believe, through to turn 9 and then into turn 10, which is of course that left right, almost a chicane, but it's not quite chicane. I think there's for me there's a little bit too much gap there for to call it a chicane, but it is a very tricky set of corners nonetheless, because very easy from my experience to go out onto the grass on that left hand side. But that is by the by. We get ready for round 7 then. The pace car pulls in. Thomas Gurdlian pulls the cars around. It's Laurent Benzo alongside on that front row. We get ready to go green, and away we go then. Thomas Gurdlian pulls the cars round, as we said, on the run down towards turn 1 then. That right-hander to pull the cars uphill, and up on the inside then, Laurent Benzo just decides to think caution to the wind. Somehow just manages to put that car around the outside as we go picture in picture. That is the Pro-Am class, and again it's another great start there from James Fierro there, who keeps the cars ahead of Dan Sedgley and Harry Wills, again on the outside of the corner there as you go picture in picture. That's the Am class this time that are getting underway there through the right-hander at turn 1. And again, I think the key message for tonight, for these first 5 minutes here, David, is going to be surviving and getting into a rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. 75 minutes to go, of course, 2 mandatory pit stops. So they're going to have to bide their time a little bit. And yeah, in the main, I think we can agree that's definitely been the case. Francois Rodriguez made an early move up into top position of the pro class, so he's been making moves early doors. Vince Peters, as I was just about to say, hasn't made a move. He's now gone up into 5th place as well. And just going back to what you said before, David, like you say, slightly less on the grid as well. There's a car facing the wrong way there. I didn't quite catch who that was. That's Igor Kos, I can see, just based on the relative. He's going to be back into the Am group now, which is a terrible start for him. But yeah, it's not as much work for these guys to do early doors as you would normally have, just simply because of, like I say, less people being involved, which makes life a little bit easier. But when you've got the likes of Aldrini, Benzo and Madsen ahead of you, nothing's ever very simple, is it?
No, it really isn't, as we watch the cars coming down then into the second half of the circuit. Then this is in towards the chicane there. Dean Timms trying to make his way through, but he really gets hamstrung almost by Gilding, trying to make his way through. So Dan Gilding moves up into second place. Then they start their second lap of the race. The pros, meanwhile, are away off into the distance. So it's a 75-minute race here. We've got 2 mandatory pit stops, and again, from experience on these 75-minute races, I think it's a little bit of more a muted tone towards the start of this race, as Dean Thames right on cue, too much of the curb, very easy to do, and it's almost an instant fatality for that car of Dean Thames there. It was straight on into the front end, and maybe lucky that the front end is a bit empty in these Porsches. As Igor Kos late onto the brakes, that is a replay of what happened there. Oh, that is naughty, reversing back on, and there you go, Dean Thames straight to the scene of the accident there, David.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we say, he just caught that curb a little bit too aggressively coming down through the S's, and yeah, you see exactly what happens when you make those mistakes, and you see it's shut him right down to the back end of the grid. Nick Madsen, though, he's got Arius Humantis around the outside. He's trying to pressurise Laurent Benzo. This is leaving Francois Aldrini a chance to break away, and Humantis has caught Madsen napping. I think there's a little flash of the lights there. I'm not quite entirely sure who it was from, but really impressive move from the Lithuanian, managing to get the move done and up into P3. All in the while, though, like I said, this battle continues to rage on for these final 4 places, so 3rd through 6th in the pro class, and that is leaving Francois Aldrini the chance to really make a disappearing act at the start of this one.
And it's been a fantastic start to the race for Francois Aldrini. We've seen him struggling to get himself up to there, but to be honest with you, I was expecting Laurent Benzo to kind of hold on to that one, but it's just not been the case at all. Laurent Benzo now 3.3 seconds behind Francois Aldrini, and now leading this absolute charge of a group that you've got going on there. As you see, Nick Maidson and Vince Peters going side by side. This is going to end well into the chicane there as Humantis tries to hold on. There was a little bit of a hip check there between Humantis and Laurent Benzo, and Benzo ends up losing out as Maidson almost shown to the grass as well. 4 minutes gone on this race here, and this is a little bit different. We're not used to this, David, are we? This aggressive start to the race from the pro class, where they're usually happy to maybe sit in between for the first maybe 20-30 minutes of the race. But that also means that Vince Peters has now been unleashed and off into second place there, so he'll be chasing down Francois Aldrini, and my goodness me, did we not see some sparks when those two got together last time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think probably the reason for that kind of forced haste, if you want to call it that, of anything, is just simply because of that gap that Aldrini's starting to pull out. We know that gap can be done. Obviously, we've seen different strategies throughout the endurance races so far this season, which have differed in benefits to pretty much every driver in every class so far. But that is a big gap early doors, considering you're 3 full laps into this race, and you've got a 5-second gap to your leader in class and potentially one of your title rivals. It's the kind of thing you probably want to make the move on. But as you can see by the relative, he's not really kind of closing that gap, and he's really not pulling away from those behind him as well. It'll be interesting to see how they get on down through the back straight, because we saw how important the slipstream is. Meanwhile, Jason Dilworth is just about away. He's pressuring Simon Underhill, and he's being pressured by Ryan Hamilton as well, and Eric Benson for good measure. So these AM class drivers are seemingly very similar on pace, and that's making for a nice little battle early doors here.
Yeah, that's a brilliant battle, as you said there. So it's Dan Gilding in the lead, Simon Underhill. It's then Jason Dilworth from Ryan Hamilton, Benson in 5th position as well. Moving back to pro, Francois Aldrini still 4.5 seconds, or near as damn it, to the lead of the race. Then Vince Peters in 2nd place. It's Nick Maidson in 3rd place, and then Laurent Benzo with Thomas Gurdlian in 5th position as well. Pro-Ams, it's Jean Fierro who got a great start there ahead of Sedgley in 2nd place there. Dan Sedgley, Steve Martin in 3rd. Corey Pride makes a move up to 4th place, and then Stuart Reynolds into 5th place as well. Arius Humantis has a bit of a moment there in the pro class as well, but again, this is what we said, this is what it's all about. Given that there's going to be pit stops, given that a lot of the drivers are going to be mixed in through the different classes as the race goes on here, it's a nice little chance, and a rare little chance, David, for us to kind of sit back and really mull things over and kind of watch the little subtleties of this race develop.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to see how these guys are managing their race as well. You can see, especially in the Pro Am class, it seems, and you'd argue the same for the Am class. Just looking at the relatives, there's not really been after the first couple of laps, apart from any incidents, little mistakes here and there. There's not really been much in terms of position change, and that's not necessarily to say that this race is tedious or dull or anything like that. It just shows you the thought process that goes through these guys. I mean, look at Vince Peters there, fastest lap of the race, 1:19.3, bettered that of Francois Aldrini by a few tenths of a second. Dean Timms there not having the best start of the race. You see, he's gone and exited stage left there instead of stage right like he did on the first couple of laps. But they're just biding their time, like you say. They may be employing a bit of fuel saving, trying to push the car as long as they possibly can into this first stint to try and minimise the amount of time lost in the pit lane. It's not necessarily the longest pit lane on the calendar, but it is one that can potentially slow them down a little bit. So yeah, minimise the amount of time you can be in there. If you can then get some clear air as well, that's going to really benefit them, and I think that will be the plan the longer they go into this race.
It certainly is, and again, a little bit surprised to see Vince Peters not tearing away off down the road in front in charge of Francois Aldrini. But again, with this being an endurance race, we've seen this before, where Peters is almost a master of managing the fuel and managing the tyres, but he's going to have to watch out because Nick Maidsen is not letting this one go, and we're not used to seeing Vince Peters under too much pressure because the pair of them separated by just 1/10 on that last lap there, and Maidsen looks like he actually wants this. He wants to take the second position, and I'm not sure if this strategy for Vince is going to be allowed to play out because Maidsen might be about to force his hand here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Vince Peters has been almost imperious, I suppose, if you want to call it that, in these endurance races so far. He's actually not finished any lower than second in the three that we've had up until this point, so really showing he's got it down to a T when it comes to strategy. But like you say, yeah, struggling to pull away from Mads at the moment. We know how similarly paced these guys are. They've been at each other's throats, for want of a better phrase, at a couple of events so far this season, so it's good to see they're continuing that in earnest. But realistically, Nick needs to make that move done at some point during his race to start to close that gap down, because with 4 rounds left, including this one, those chances to claw back a chance to gain that championship title are growing ever slimmer at the moment.
And that's it. That now we have to start thinking about the championship with only 4 rounds left to go in this Race Anywhere Porsche Cup. Tonight, obviously, here at Road Atlanta, you've got Monza, Silverstone and Bathurst still to come. We go for a replay then on Harry Wills. And this is going to be an off-track here. And again, very, very easy to do. That is a huge moment for Harry Wills there. And that is going to be coming out of turn 5 there, where he gets on the curb, spins the car around. And oh my good God, that is a car into the wall. Just manages to miss him. That is going to be one of the AM cars because, of course, Harry Wills is a Pro-Am car. And that is Igor Kos. And yeah, that's a lot of damage. You can see that car pulling to the left now, so you've got to feel bad for Igor Kos, but that could have been a lot worse there.
Yeah, absolutely. You actually did a pretty good job considering the blind crest you seem to just go through there now. That's quite a blind crest they've got coming up through turn 5 and back down the hill towards turn 6. So yeah, it's not the easiest corner. When you see a car pointing the wrong direction, it's quite difficult to get out of the way. So yeah, I'd say Igor Kos done a good job there, but that just shows you that's the kind of instance you can get stuck into when you have those early mistakes. You can see Laurent Benzo into the pits already. I don't know whether that was a planned pit stop or not. You can see that Igor Kos and Harry Wills are both in the pit lane as well, but obviously you would assume that's maybe a little bit more terminal, depends on the damage they got from that little incident there. But the pro class, as you can see, well, actually, I was going to say you can see they're quite close. I was looking at the relative to the AM class. I was just looking at the fact that Ariel Schumann is behind someone, but he's not behind the pro class on track. He's actually sitting behind Pro-Am leader Kane Fierro, which is kind of testament to how his race has gone so far. It's starting to break away a little bit in the pro class, but the rest of those guys are sticking very closely together down the back end of the field.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic race so far for the pro field and also for the AM field as well. Brilliant battle still raging on with them. You've got a 5-car battle. Dan Gilding in the lead of that one from Simon Underhill. Jason Dilworth in 3rd position as well with Ryan Hamilton and Eric Benson still on that choo-choo train as we speak. Erasio Mantis though trying to catch onto the back, as you said, of Gian Fierro. So this isn't for a class position. This is just for an overall position. And Gian Fierro you've got to say, I mean, he is just away with it right now. Absolutely nobody to answer to in the Pro-Am class right now. That being said, he is actually being caught by Dan Sedgley and Steve Martin and Cody Pride, who were all faster than James Fierro that last lap. So again, the gap coming down slowly by about maybe 0.3 of a second a lap, but that is all they need. Meanwhile, that gap to Peters and Maidson, that's now over a second. So something has happened between to Nick Maidson, and he has lost 0.7 of a second that last lap round. That now releases Vince Peters to go charging off and hunt down Francois Aldrini. But 12 and a half minutes gone in this race here as we head through the night at Road Atlanta. And I wonder, David, it's obviously a very well lit circuit, but I wonder how much these dark conditions, especially if we've got any drivers that are in VR, it's going to be a bit of a challenge, shall we say, for some of them, as we've got an absolute scrap of a battle going on in Am right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, you can see the circuit's well floodlit. It is one of those where you've got, like I say, because you host some of the higher level sports car races. You mentioned obviously the PLM here, the 10 hour of Atlanta. It's one of them. Like there's going to be some good infrastructure there, but you can see just going up through the S's, there's not a huge amount of visibility down through there. Obviously, these guys aren't too bad off because they've got a car in front of them and a car behind, which is kind of lighting the way, for want of a better phrase. But if you look at Aldrini, for example, he is out there on his own at the moment. Same with Fierro, and he's not really got much of a chance to kind of see where he's going to an extent. Obviously, it's different for us looking on them now as opposed to looking at them in the cockpit of the car. But yeah, not the easiest thing. And like I said, there's quite a lot of blind exits, blind apexes at this circuit. So it just makes it a little bit more difficult. And it just means that the pace these guys go around and the way they seem to be on the limit, but within the track limits and the confines of the track as well, just shows how impressive and how talented these guys are. As I say that, infinite curse to the commentator comes through. Laurent Benzo going through the S's, misses one of the corners entirely, and interestingly parks up the car. Not sure what has caused that. He's actually... Oh, no, he was in the pits. He's come out now. 2 minutes and 42 seconds in the pit, so not sure what happened there, but must have had some sort of suspension damage through that incident.
Yeah, well, he's got going again, but Harry Wills obviously still in pit lane. I'm wondering if that is a retirement for that car. That was heavy damage caused to that one. But on lap 11 now, and these laps fairly go quite fast here on Road Atlanta. So to give you an update then, Francois Aldrini still in the lead of the race here. Vince Peters in second place. Nick Maidson starting to close back that gap now a little bit. So he's starting to catch up as well. Thomas Gilderland in fourth. James Fierro now in that Pro-Am car up in the fifth place. That's a cracking result for him. Arias Humantis in sixth position. Dan Sedgley in seventh. Steve Martin and Cody Pride in eighth and ninth. And Stuart Reynolds in ninth and 10th. Dan Gilding in 11th, Jason Dilworth and Simon Underhill in 12th and 13th, Ryan Hamilton in 14th, Eric Benson in 15th, and Chris Chatterton and Dean Thames in 16th and 17th place. And Arias Humantis has now got that position back from James Fierro, and I wonder if he just saw that one coming, because now that gap now massively coming down. We've got a huge battle going on for the Pro-Am lead.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see him losing the position to Humantis Vieira under fire from not only Dan Sedgley, but it's also Steve Martin and Cody Pride and Stuart Reynolds. Stuart Reynolds put in the fastest lap in their class on there. You can see a 19.9 going through ever so slightly quicker than that. Cody Pride just ahead of him. It shows you how much quicker it can be to run behind another car. It's a really strange feeling. Like if you've got a car in front of you that has got the pace, it just makes you quicker. Like I've been in races before where I will be trying to hit a personal best. I'll get nowhere near. I'll get stuck behind someone who's a little bit quicker than me, and immediately I'll go 0.3 quicker. It just shows you how much easier it is, and I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. They're allowing the chance to catch him up a little bit. I wonder if Fierro might do the same now. He's back behind Arias Humantis, but he needs to do it quickly because, as you said, he's got four very hungry Pro-Am drivers breathing down his neck at the moment.
Just seeing Thomas Gilderland into the pit lane there, and I'm wondering if that is actually a pit or if that is a return to garage there. We'll get an idea on that in just a couple of minutes there. But Dean Thames into the pits as well. He looked like he was having a bit of an incident there himself, and now we've got a proper little scrap going on here for the Pro-Am battle then. James Fierro ahead of Dan Sedgley and Steve Martin, Cody Pride and Stuart Reynolds all fighting it out here as they come across the line to start lap number 13 here at Road Atlanta for the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup Series. And David, I mean, yeah, it might be down on cars, but certainly not down on action tonight, as it's been fairly tasty so far.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's kind of something we come to expect, isn't it? No matter how many people are on the grid, like I say, less than normal, but they're still showing a good job of it nonetheless. And this Pro-Am class is really testament to how good these guys are. They're driving so closely together. I mean, look at them. There's 1.5 to 2 seconds between the top 5 in class. That shows you the quality we've got across that field. And I'm sure the same will happen over time as well, because Goldillian is actually out of the race, it looks like. Oh no, he's out. No, sorry, he's just come out of pit lane. That's what that out is for. My apologies. Harry Wills still in pit lane, as that looks like he's definitely his race done. But it shows you the quality of these guys, as I've said before. The fact they can run so closely together, and if they need to, they'll make a move. But everything that these guys do, from the top of the pro class to the bottom of the young class, is so well calculated that we get to see brilliant action as a result. And it's very rare. Like I say, we see a few instances here and there. We've seen a few little moments of silliness, as we've mentioned a couple of times, in terms of little people not stopping on the track and getting in the way of things and unsafe rejoins, that sort of thing. But in the main, they're absolutely spot on, and these guys are proving week after week that they are very, very, very competent and very quick racers.
Certainly more competent than me anyway. I gave the GT3s a shot today at Sebring. Didn't really work out so well for me in the overall, but that's exactly why I'm not on the grid here tonight. Although, who knows, I might be for the next season. We'll have to wait and see. But Eric Benson we're currently on board with just now, chasing down Ryan Hamilton for Nomad Sim Racing in that AM class right now. Just 0.3 of a second coming up through turn 1, through turn 2, and then through the S's just now on the run down that hill as well. So Eric Benson for Slow Mo Racing really has the number on Ryan Hamilton here just now, but Ryan doing a great job of holding on to that position. And I'm also looking at that pro battle where Nick Medson again is starting to bring that gap down, but also in Pro-Am you look at how many drivers are so close to each other, but none of them really dicing it, none of them really chancing it or wanting to make a move here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it's typical endurance race style racing. They're biding their time a little bit. You'd argue maybe a few of them are fuel saving. That might be why Eric Benson, who we ride on board with now in the 51 car, is not necessarily looked to make a move on Ryan Hamilton. Trust him to do that now, I've no doubt, as they come down through turn 9, which realistically is not. I mean, I suppose it's more of a turn. If you look at there, he shapes to the inside. Can he get the move done into turn 10A? He goes to the inside, he keeps the car there, but just backs out of it at the last minute. Maybe a sensible move in the end, just letting Ryan Hamilton know he's there. But this battle for the Pro-Am lead rages on. Fierro's made a little bit more of a gap. He's gained a couple of tenths over the last lap or two, but he's not really making the breakaway he would have wanted after that start to the race. He started to fall back in line with them, and as a result, you've got this nice big freight train of cup cars in the Pro-Am class, which is inevitably going to end with either a few tears here and there, or I think we'll start to see people pitting and maybe trying to get some time in the clear air.
Well, I've seen Thomas Gildlian in the pits still. He's shown as out, so I'm presuming that means he's out of the actual race then. So Thomas Gildlian out of the race, 3 laps down. Laurent Benzo is retired from the race, so already out of only the 6 pro drivers, David, we've lost 2 of them, so we're down to 4 pro drivers. Looks like we've got Igor Koss and Simon Underhill still going, but a lap down, and Dean Timms still in pit lane as we speak here. So yeah, I mean, this is difficult stuff for these drivers, and just trying to watch them make their way through. What do you think it is about Road Atlanta that makes it so difficult for these drivers? And also, how have I not noticed that Vince Peters is only a second behind Francois Aldrini?
He's been slowly but surely, in typical Vince Peters fashion, closing the gap, hasn't he? I think it's just it's not lit. It's a tight and twisty track, and I think in these Porsche Cup cars, if you've, like I said earlier, if you've not got the setup on the point, then it's going to make the car very difficult to handle. Obviously, seen a couple of people getting caught out on the curbs, going through the S's, for example. And I think that's probably something that maybe puts people off. I don't think it's anything other than that. I just think some people maybe not as familiar with the track, not maybe as quick as they'd like to be. If it was me, then I would get involved. I drive every single race knowing that there's always a chance for some decent points. If I was in that pro class and I thought to myself, well, maybe I won't be able to do it tonight and I'll go do something else instead, I'd sit here watching the broadcast and think, oh, missed out on some pretty decent points here. I could get myself back up the championship instead. I'm seeing these guys who were battling top 3 in the championship, top 3 in class on the race, not necessarily in that order. They are starting to bridge that gap even further. So realistically, it's starting to become a 3-horse race for that Pro Championship. For the other ones, though, it's still very, very close, as it is on track, especially in that Pro-Am class.
Penny for your thoughts if you're Nick Maidson right now. He's played a blinder, has he? Just staying to the back of Vince Peters, who's now catching right onto the back of Francois Aldrini. But never mind that. What a battle we have got for Pro-Am. And what the hell has happened to the AM class? The AM class was so close, and now it's just exploded and everybody is kind of all over the place. So Dan Gilding in the lead of the AM class just now from Jason Dilworth and Ryan Hamilton. So it's a Nomad 1, 2, 3. Eric Benson in 4th position, still trying to get past, and Chris Chariton in 5th. But this is where our attention is right now. Cody Pride, for example, P4 into the Pro-Am Championship just now, trying to fight onto the back of Steve Martin, and there we go, Vince Peters up the inside, takes that lead like it was absolutely nothing. I was expecting a little bit more fireworks there from Francois Aldrini. I'm wondering if Francois had a bit of a slow down penalty there.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a motive, an ulterior motive there. Maybe he's trying to do something on purpose.
Absolutely sent it.
It didn't look very difficult. Like, yeah, it was a bit of a send, like he came through late, but it just didn't look like, if you're Francois Aldrini in that position, you defend that corner, in my eyes. It doesn't matter how far back he is. You know he's probably going to go for the move. At that point, on his relative, he's probably, 3 tenths back? For me, I'm covering that position, knowing the guy who's behind me. Some people I might not, some people I wouldn't. He's definitely one of them. And it's a really weird one. You see Simon Underhill coming through the S here. Is he going to lose the car? In fact, no, that's not good. Yeah, it is going through the S. He's just missed the corner entirely, which is a little bit... Oh, wow, that car's looking very second-hand. That's probably why he didn't make the corner. I wonder if this is going to show us exactly how that happened. Comes through 10A and 10B. Comes out of there. Oh, yeah, loses the back end on the grass.
Not the bridge. Into
it's the bridge. That's looking second hand.
Never mind second hand. That's a Gumtree job right there. But Cody Pride onto the back still of Steve Martin. Then as we come up to about 25 minutes gone in this race, here comes Nick Maidson. Then try to fire it up the inside of Francois Aldrini, and poor Nick Maidson is not quite able to make the move stick. And Francois Aldrini, maybe the case you've got to say, David, of once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what's happened to him. He just seems to have lost a load of pace. I don't know if he's having an incident somewhere. He was 2 seconds slower nearly on the last lap. And look at Mads, he's pushing him through the first couple of corners up into T2 as they go over the top of the hill into turn 3. It just looks like it's a matter of time. And look how much time Aldrini's lost to Peters already, and this is Nick Madsen sitting there going, geez, I've got to try and get this move done as quickly as I possibly can, otherwise my chances of clawing any points back off the current championship leader and my rival for the championship are disappearing very, very quickly. I don't know what's happened to Aldrini, but he seems to be completely bereft of pace, and it seems like he's going to be going backwards for quicker than he's going forwards at the moment.
Yeah, very, very much the case here, so we'll keep our eye on that one. Meanwhile, back with the Pro-Am battle then, this is hotting up very, very nicely indeed. James Fierro, who was out in front, is being well and truly caught by Dan Sedgley around the inside for the next corner. It's going to try and stay Francois Aldrini. He's going to be later on the brakes, and you know that was always going to happen. Nick Maidson tries to get the cut back, but again, good defensive driving there from Francois Aldrini. Maidson sent it up the inside, may very well have this position here done and dusted, and indeed he does. So they go across the start, lap number 20 for them, and that is going to be a position for Nick Maidson. Francois Aldrini, I get the feeling that he is absolutely fizzing right now, and is going to absolutely send it at the next available opportunity here, David. He just, looking at the mannerisms of that car, he's had enough.
Yeah, absolutely. He looks like he is struggling for pace, and he is going to try whatever he can to get back into P2 on track. It's not worked out well for him it had done up until he just seemingly, like I say, his pace just disappeared. I don't know whether there's an incident we missed and he's got a bit of damage on the car, or he's just running out of fuel for the first stint and needs to try and extend it a little bit longer. Only he will know. But yeah, he's lost a lot of time. He does seem, according to the relative, to be sticking to the back of Peter Madsen. Sorry, so we'll see how that changes. Just in case it remains to see whether Madsen can start to bridge the gap towards Peters. He's lost 3.5 seconds, best part of 4 seconds in 2 laps, battling with Francois Rodrini. So that's a big problem for him. As we can see, that Pro-Am battle is still as close as you like, top 5, still separated by less than 2 seconds. Cody Pride all over the back of Steve Martin, Dan Sedgley all over the back of Hayne Fierro, going on to the back straight now, down towards turn 10A and 10B. I think there's going to be some moves if we're not too careful over the next couple of laps if it stays like this.
Well, we've got 5 drivers in the Pro-Am category currently trying to do bits as we speak, and Dan Sedgley going side by side with James Fierro then. This is for the lead of the Pro-Am class, and Dan Sedgley's got it done and dusted, takes the lead of the Pro-Am class just now, and James Fierro has to lick his wounds and make the best of trying to get back to it, because he's going to have to watch out. He's got Steve Martin and Cody Pride all gunning for him as well. Cody Pride again seems to be just quite happy to sit to the boot lid of Steve Martin just in front of him here, and I do think that this is strategy here from Cody Pride. We know that he's got the pace here, David, to win races, but again he just seems settled in to stay behind that car in front. So maybe this is strategy from Cody Pride, and given that it's about a second that splits the entire top 4 up, he could be in for a very good result tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on with what we think Cody Pride is doing. He's been behind Steve Martin for roughly around sort of 2 or 3 tenths of a second for pretty much the best part of the last 20 minutes or so. So I think you're absolutely spot on. I think he's definitely trying to plan this race a little bit. He'll probably be saving quite a bit of fuel just being in the slipstream, especially down the back straight we're on now. He's not really got too much pressure from Stuart Reynolds behind. He's within half a second almost, but he's not really putting him under too much pressure and doing anything particularly silly. So yeah, it looks like he's got it planned. You see, he probably could have caught up towards Steve Martin there, but again, just doesn't really worry too much about it. So he's probably got a plan. Again, only he'll know what that plan is, I'm sure, unless he's told anyone else who he's working alongside what he's going to be doing. But we'll have to wait and see. We've got still 2 pit stops to go. We've got 45 minutes left of this race at the moment. Strategy will start to play out soon as we see Martin going up the inside of Fierro. Fierro's losing positions quicker than he was gaining them now. He's dropped from first to third in the space of a couple of laps, and that gap towards Sedgley has just started to increase that little bit.
It certainly is. So we're watching them coming through here, and James Fierro now really struggling. I'm wondering actually if some of these drivers are struggling with tyres. The reason I say that is that I look at the cars out in front, the likes of Francois Aldrini, the likes of James Fierro, who were out the front and really pushing away, and it feels like, or it looks like, certainly timing wise, that the tyres have just fallen away from these cars here and have almost dropped off a cliff. So it would make sense if that is what's happened, as Nick Maidson actually into the pits already, half an hour gone. That's very early.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, like I say, he's been behind people for a while, so he's obviously, clearly he's not managed to save as much fuel as he would have wanted. You can see Cody Pride now has actually been overtaken by Stuart Reynolds, so not sure where that move was done, whether it was in the first sector like we saw the move on Steve Martin on Hayne Fierro. As you can see there, one of the cars going very wide. Who's that going wide there? That is it's Cody Pride, so Stuart Reynolds getting all sorts of out of shape. Fierro goes into the pit lane, so he makes his first pit stop of the race, and Madsen has dropped back behind Arias Gimantis as well. Fierro goes in. I don't know if that was a cause for a little bit of distraction for Stuart Reynolds, but you just see him go so wide coming down towards T12, and just about managed to hold on to his Arias Gimantis there. I think that is just goes through for good measure as well. That was some interesting stuff to see. As you can see now, Dan Sedgley going into T1. What happens to him here? He just looks like the back end's a little bit twitchy going through there. Back end sticks out up the hill. Is he going to hold on to it? It looks like he will for the moment. And it looks to be okay. But that was a big moment for Stuart Reynolds. Big Code Brown as he was going very close towards the wall at a point there.
Yeah, it certainly was a lucky boy, and it could have been so much worse there. Kerbs are an absolute killer here at Road Atlanta, and we've seen that time and time again. Vince Peters now ahead of Francois Aldrini, who says enough is enough, goes into pit lane. Half an hour gone in this race. Pro-Am battle then. Dan Sedgley ahead of Steve Martin from Cody Pride, and Reynolds in fourth position with James Fierro in fifth position as well. Am battle is going to be Dan Gilding, ahead of Ryan Hamilton and Eric Benson, Chris Cheriton in 4th, and Jason Dilworth down in 5th position. So pit stops now coming through, the first of 2 mandatory pit stops for tonight here at Road Atlanta, and half an hour seems to be the point where a lot of the drivers are taking them right now. So where does that leave Vince Peters right now, given that he is the only one in Pro that hasn't pitted?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm intrigued to know why he's got a red name now. I'm not sure what's caused that on the timing chart, but yeah. It's just a case now of how long can Vince take it? Does he have the pace to continue a little bit longer? It seemed like he had the pace anyway, as he seems to always do, no matter what track and car combination it is so far this season. But he's got a 45-second gap at the moment. That's courtesy of Nick Madsen putting a 21.13 stationary pit time on the board. And there you go. His hand has been shown. Vince Peters comes into pit lane. We'll keep a very keen eye on the pit stop time and see whether that's going to have any impact on the standings at the top end. Francois Rodrini was a second quicker in the pit lane. He's lost a little bit of time in the long run to Nick Madsen, though. Maybe not so confident on pit entry and pit exit, you think?
Absolutely enthralling how this is all panning out here at the 7th round of the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup here. Live, and it's David Christie and David Russell bringing you all of the action here tonight. Again, we're rapidly approaching the halfway point in the race here, and again, one of the things is that we've mentioned earlier on is the fact that we're down on numbers. But if anything, rather than making it weaker, it feels like it makes it more concentrated. That we often miss a lot of the battles because there's just so much going on, whereas we get to actually enjoy everything that's properly going on out on track.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw in the driver chat on the Discord, someone put a very amusing meme in there, and it was the one where the guy's got 2 buttons in front of him, and it was like non-stop action, championship implicating manoeuvres and things like that, and it's got it pans to the guy and says broadcaster, and you think, God, yeah, it's exactly the kind of position we find ourselves in normally. Just looking at the pit stop times, you see them on the time chart at the moment. 7 seconds gained by Vince Peters in that pit stop phase. That is ridiculous. I know he's quick in these pit stop phases, but he's surely underfueled that car. I know he's probably saving a bit when he wasn't in the lead of the race, but that is something short of extraordinary. He's at least 2 seconds quicker in the pit stop than anyone else. The closest to him, you can see, is Ryan Hamilton with a 16.9. How he's done that is ridiculous. I don't get how this man does it.
Well, of course, if he's having to take 2 pit stops, then it very well might be that he's just fueling it for maybe say 10 laps and then deciding to bring it in. We'll certainly see how the strategy pans out, because let's not forget, Vince Peters has been caught short on strategy before, and it could very well happen again. So we'll just have to keep our eye on it and see how this one develops. But 35 minutes gone in the race out of a 75-minute race. So again, like I say, we're coming up to a halfway point here at around about that will be 37 and a half minutes. So I'm quite impressed that I managed to work that out all by myself there, David. That's quite impressive. Looking at the cars that we've got out just now then, so Eric Benson into the pits, Igor Koss into the pits. I think we've lost Simon Underhill, Dean Timms is out, Thomas Gillian is out, Laurent Benzo is out, and Harry Wills is out. So essentially we've got 15 cars left out of a 20-car grid. Yeah,
it is a shame. Like I say, obviously, I don't think we can say safely for people like Harry Wills, there was instances that obviously meant the car was just going to be very, very difficult to drive. Same with Dean Timms as well. Of course, we saw him have a few incidents early doors in this race. But yeah, it's difficult to see, and it does mean that the gap's slightly bigger. But I mean, look, let's not take away anything from the fact that if we continue to look at this Pro-Am class, every driver on track now has pitted, and yet somehow these lot, and they've had some different, I'd say they've had some, in the main, they've been fairly kind of stagnant on the pit stop times, but how they've managed to come out in really the same order. You can see Fierro and Martin and Steve Martin have jumped Dan Sedgley. Otherwise, they're in the same order. It's quite impressive they managed to do that, because when you consider a pit stop phase, you normally think, well, there's going to be a few moves, a few changes, position here and there. In the main time, Fierro sends it up the inside into turn 10. Lovely little move from him there. Steve Martin was more than welcoming for the move down the inside. But the fact they've come out of that pit stop phase this close is incredible, how they've managed to keep the pace so similar.
And on that note, then, again, it just explains why that Pro-Am battle is still so close. But Jason Dilworth actually ahead of the Am battle, and I'm pretty sure that means that surely he's not pitted. We'll double check there. No, it's saying he has done a pit stop. So Jason Dilworth from being at the back of the field. Now, maybe Jason Dilworth took his pit stop first. That might explain things, but he's certainly 4.5 tenths of a second ahead of Dan Gilding right now, and Ryan Hamilton chasing him down. So the privateer has absolutely pulled a blinder on that one. Well, I was saying that it was privateer, but it's not, is it? It's, of course, the three of them are all Nomad Sim Racing. That's my bad for getting Arius Humantis mixed up with that one. So on our live timing, we've got it where we can highlight over the person's name and it comes up with their team name. So I will apologise on that one. But Vince Peters then, I've be like yourself there. I'm not sure why he's got that red part on his name there. We'll keep an eye on that and find out what exactly that is all about there. But he's been into the pits. He's still 13 seconds ahead of Nick Maidson there. Well, it's now cleared, so his name's there. Maybe it was just the timing tower playing tricks there, because it's certainly cleared itself off there. But Nick Maidson 13 seconds behind. What do you do if you're Nick Maidson? Because you're like, I've just done my normal strategy and I've been absolutely whacked around the face with this.
Yeah, I think you have to reassure yourself in that situation, because you know that the large majority of that difference in time, that interval, is based on the fact that you're the guy in front of you who is now gone red again, and I can't stop thinking about why he keeps going red on the screen or not. You have to remember, yeah, he's done something wrong. I'm sure of it. He's just too quick. You've got to take that into account. More than half of that time is because of the fact that the guy ahead of you was in the pit stops for 7 seconds shorter time than you were. So if you think about it, you take that away, he's 5 seconds, 6 at a push ahead of him. So he's just got to try and take that into account. If he's got the fuel to go a bit longer, then hopefully he can kind of get that back in terms of an overcut in the second stint now. But it is a difficult one, especially when you see it kind of every now and again. You go up, you're pushing it a bit harder, you make a little mistake, that sort of thing. It can be quite a difficult mental game, as you can see there. Jason Dilworth making the move, Dan Gilding rather, making the move past Jason Dilworth. It's a Nomad Sim Racing switch at the top of the AM class. But yeah, it's not easy. I think I've realised what it is. I think it's to do with the fact they're a lap ahead of the guy we're focusing on. I think because he's on a lap ahead, he's come up in red, because I've just seen Nick Madsen do it as well. But yeah, it's a difficult one, and especially when you can see the interval going up as well, it can be quite soul destroying to see that happening, knowing that the guy ahead of you is that far ahead and seemingly that little bit quicker as well.
Right, we've got a little bit of breaking news here in the Pro-Am category then, as Cody Pride is starting to drop away a little bit from Steve Martin up in front there. Just also looking at the times that are coming in for the Pro class there, 1:19.49 for Vince Peters there. Nick Maidson had done a 1:19.86, but last time was a 1:19.97. So again, the time's fairly comparable. It is still going up, that gap to Vince Peters, as we see Dan Sedgley side by side with Cody Pride. Then this is going to be a battle down into the corner, and Dan Sedgley has got that done. Cody Pride relegated to 4th position there, and that means that Sedgley maybe can try and make a move up here. Cody Pride's never going to try and take the inside there. He thought about it, he's still thinking about it, but it's not going to happen, and he's going to have to watch out now, because Stuart Reynolds is likely to fancy having a go here as well. So we've passed the halfway point in the race by a couple of minutes here. Vince Peters still out in the lead from Nick Maidson. What's your thoughts at this point then, David? Because obviously a lot of points still up for grabs there, as that was Dan Gilding absolutely sending it over the curbs there.
Yeah, he's attacking them like nobody's business. Dan essentially just gets a little bit of a poor exit, and he was actually trying to make the move on Cody Pride. It seems Pride seems to have lost a fair bit of pace over the last couple of laps. You see 2 seconds back from him to Steve Martin now. But yeah, let's set the scene. I think Vince Peters at this point, obviously we need to see what happens in the final pit stop phase. 7 seconds pit stop difference is a lot of fuel, you would have to imagine. So it remains to be seen exactly how that's going to come out. But I think if Peters does come away with a win tonight, I think, in my opinion at least, and that of course that means nothing. That's one hand on the championship for him. But as you see there, we'll cut back to that in a second, because who's that going up the inside of the stage? Reynolds up the inside.
That is the send of all sends there, David. That is unbelievable. He just took 2 cars with that send into that corner there. Unbelievable stuff. As Stuart Reynolds goes up at the 3rd position with that move at turn 5 on Cody Pride and Dan Sedgley there. Unbelievable stuff there.
Yeah, proper opportunistic move. It's what you love to see in these sorts of things. You've got to do it every now and again. I know that there's apps out there that will be your spotter and things like that. I know there's one of them in particular, Crucci's the one I use, where you'll hear him after a while if you're stuck behind somebody, go, just send it already. And that's exactly what Stuart Reynolds has done there. Like you say, 2 cars in one corner is particularly impressive in any car, let alone one that's got no ABS or a heavy braking zone like that, because how he's managed to hold on to it and make the move at the same time is really rather impressive.
Yeah, brilliant move there as we head to about half an hour left to go here. 45 minutes about to be struck off the clock, and a brilliant race that we've got underway. So really enjoying this just now. So David, obviously we've got another pit stop left to go. What do we think?
Yeah, so like I said before, I think Vince Peters is looking like he's a surefire thing for this race. Apart from if he has any pit stop issues, I don't think he will. But like I say, remains to be seen. There's still another pit stop phase left to go. The Pro-Am class, we've seen this the entire way through. I couldn't possibly pick out of those top 5 drivers who's going to take the win in the class this evening at this point, because we've seen, I think, every single one of them lead the class at a particular point. This is Stuart Reynolds. This is not the move that he made. This is him. Is he losing it? Oh, just loses it coming out of turn 10. Does he avoid the wall? It looks like he does. The camera angles go a little bit strange, but yeah, just about. You see the tyres stop locking up the brakes, he goes through. Fortunately, he managed to avoid it, but it's a shame, really, isn't it? All that hard work just gone just by getting a little bit too happy on the loud pedal and making a spin. But yeah, Pro-Am class, I said top 5, it's top 4 now, maybe. Depends on how Stuart gets back up to speed. And I think, well, it's a Nomad Sim Racing win in the AM class, but who's it going to be? Because, we know they're pretty quick, we know they've got the pace, but it's just a case of who's going to win that one. And particular attention paid to the fact that they are so close in the two championships for the AM and the Pro-Am as well. Points in here will make big differences in the larger scale of the championship, and we could see a couple of different championship leaders if things change and they go the way they do this evening.
That's the weird thing about lower grids like this, where obviously maybe it's the night racing, maybe it's the track, that drivers aren't really wanting to do that. They get a drop score as well, so that's got to be taken into consideration. But it's almost free points for maybe drivers that are not having the best of seasons, as we go to a replay here of Simon Underhill, and that is a pretty spectacular accident. I've got a feeling that's coming out of turn 5 then, the left-hander up the hill there. He's probably put 2 wheels onto the grass on the right-hand side, and it spat him out into the wall, as we see Dan Sedgley back on it, trying to catch up to Cody Pride, but it looks like it's a 2-horse race now with 30 minutes left to go. Jean Fierro back in the lead ahead of Steve Martin. Cody Pride in 3rd with Dan Sedgley in 4th, and Stuart Reynolds in 5th position, going from hero to zero, it would appear there. Vince Peters in the lead of the race in the Pro class ahead of Nick Mates in 13.9 seconds, and that gap creeping up ever slightly. Francois Aldrini in 3rd position with Arias Humantis in 4th position, and then moving down to AM class, it's Dan Gilding ahead of Jason Dilworth, Ryan Hamilton, and then Chris Chatterton. That's your top 4 just now, but really it's only Dan Gilding and Jason Dilworth, and even then they're teammates, so very unlikely to come to blows tonight. Although, stranger things have happened, David. We've seen it before where accidents do happen. Our closest action out on track, though, before we get into the second stint of pit stops, is Jane Fierro and Steve Martin. 7/10 of a second with Cody Pride and Dan Sedgley, just 3/10 of a second separating those two now. So yeah, this is going to get spicy, as they say, and we still got pit stops to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to go back to what you mentioned about Dan Gilding and Jason Dilworth. It'll be interesting to see if they do obviously end the race at the top as they are at the moment. I'm very keen to see which order they'll be in. I was just actually taking a quick look at the championship standings in the AM class. Jason Dilworth he's 31 points off of Chris Chatterton. who is sitting in P4 at the moment. So it's one of them. Their teammates, does Dan Gilding do the really kind of chivalrous and respectful thing at the end of the race if they're still in that position and give the win to Jason Dilworth, knowing that will potentially give him a real good chance in the championship? Or does he go, no, I want the win, I'm going to take it, and kind of flips the bird at him and just carries on and doing what he's doing? We'll have to wait and see. As you said, there's been races so far in the past where these guys have been very close and they've just stuck where they are, which is completely understandable at the end of the day. I'm intrigued to see how that will shape up because, like I say, 3 rounds to go after this. They've got to start thinking about the championship. They're leading the team championship, but only by a couple of points. Do they need to now maybe change tack and put a bit of focus on getting one of their other guys back up into the drivers to see if they can ruffle some feathers up there as well?
It certainly could be done, and we'll keep an eye on that. I'm more curious to see when the next round of pit stops are going to come in. I think they're going to try and do this as long as they can. Now, this is the interesting thing. Vince Peters has obviously got much less fuel in that car from the looks of it than the likes of Nick Maidson and Francois Aldrini, because their times are starting to drop off. I wouldn't be surprised to see Vince Peters in around about 2 to 3 laps time. I think such is the difference. I think Nick Maidson and Francois Aldrini possibly have about a 4 or 5 lap advantage, certainly on fuel as they come round. So 35 laps in the book, and Nick Maidson just crossed the line to start his 35th lap, and that gap now going up to nearly 15 seconds. And you know, you have to keep fighting to the end if you're in that pro battle just now. But for the rest of them, they don't need any encouragement. They don't need anything to remind them what they're fighting for, because especially that Jaime Fierro has got Steve Martin right behind him. We're watching, this is the battle for AM class here, and again, it's looking fighty, but is it actually going to be fisticuffs? I can't see it being that way for the 2 Nomad drivers. But again, like I say, stranger things have happened there, and it's certainly, I mean, it takes a lot of skill nonetheless to be able to drive this close to another driver and not misjudge things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more difficult depending on the car, and this is one of those that is particularly hard to do so. I can actually see them in the Discord. They're all in our voice channel, kind of probably chatting away. They've got their engineer in there as well. I wonder if Jason is just kind of uttering some gamesman-like quotes in the ear of Dan Gilding just to kind of put him off a little bit and see what he could do. You saw him obviously shaping to the outside into turn 10 a minute ago, just kind of reminding him that he's there if he hasn't seen him already, which I'm sure he has. But yeah, keep a keen eye on that one, because although their teammates, like you say, there's always a possibility through potentially no fault of anyone's own that they can come to blows through that. Dan Sedgley, you can see on camera at the moment, he's still got Cody Pride in tow. In fact, he's made it past Cody Pride. I apologise. So it was a change for the position a few laps ago, potentially. You can see they're losing time to Jaime Fierro and Steve Martin, who have started to make a bit of a breakaway. So this is your peloton group, if you want to call it that, in the Pro-Am class. Stuart Reynolds has not managed to bridge the gap here. We saw him create for himself when he spun just coming up the top of the hill, just where we've gone past now. I've just coming back to that, actually, David. I'm quite enjoying the fact that Darren Pride is mentioned in the YouTube chat. Great move from Reynolds, and then he's quickly defended himself by saying, not the spin. So I think he's obviously referring to that double send that he did. But yeah, so if you saw that spin so quickly afterwards, a real kind of 0 to 0 moment.
Yeah, it just, I can't get over that, because it was like, oh my god, what an amazing move, and then it's like, oh right, okay, we'll just pretend we didn't see that. Yeah, as you said, 0 to 0. Jaime Fierro starting to drop Steve Martin now. That gap is nearly a second. Meanwhile, Cody Pride is making an absolute nuisance of himself on the back of Dan Sedgley. He is all over the back of that car like an absolute ration. I've got no doubt that Cody isn't actually wanting to overtake here. He's quite happy sitting behind and fuel saving, and meaning that he doesn't actually have to go in for a considerable amount of time, because we've got 25 minutes left to go here, and the drivers now, depending on how much fuel they've taken in, and this is going to determine when their strategy actually calls them in, and they can just nudge down that amount of fuel that they're going to have to take on their second stop. And that's the different thing for those who are maybe a little bit new to sim racing, maybe don't race on iRacing like some of the other platforms. When the drivers come into the pit stops, they have to do the work themselves. The pit stop is automated, but the drivers have to set up the pit stops themselves. They have to dictate how much fuel goes into the car. They have to dictate whether or not they want tyres, whether or not they want to have their windshield visor ripped off. So all of those sorts of things have to be set by the driver in advance of them coming into the pits, and it's very, very easy for them to make a mistake. I remember on a different sim a week ago, one of the BMW teams actually, when they came in on a team event into the pit stop, they were setting the fuel levels, and he accidentally pressed up and set the brakes to be changed as well, which meant that it was going to be an extra I think 48 seconds onto the pit stop. And it's just as easy to do something similar. You can't change the brake pads in iRacing, but you can accidentally change your tyres or select them or put the wrong amount of fuel in, and that completely scuppers your race plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually remember seeing that on Twitter myself as well. It was quite amusing. I had to watch it back to actually realise what had happened, because the caption wasn't entirely clear, but I saw afterwards, oh god, yeah, that is not what you want to do. But like I say, it's so simple to do so, and I know that obviously iRacing, especially your team events, you can have your crew chief, your spotter do things like that for you, but it's still, in these situations where these guys are on their own, it's them at their own devices, like you say, it's difficult. And at Road Atlanta, apart from that back straight, there's very little time to manage these sorts of things. So if you go to your heads-up display and you see, oh crap, I've got half a lap's worth of fuel left, and you're coming towards the braking zone into turn 10, you're going to struggle to get that done in time, and you're going to be doing a very frantic change of strategy as you're going into the pit lane, and that can lose you a couple of seconds. It's very easy to do so. Part of the reason why I've not done a race on iRacing yet, which requires a pit stop, because I'm a little bit worried to do it and get it wrong. But there's a lot, like I say, it's not just can you get around the track in one piece and quickly. There's actually quite a lot of other things to take into account as well. I'm just looking at the pit laps as well. Everyone pitted around sort of 18 to 15 laps ago. So between laps 22 and 25 are where the scheduled pit stops happened. So if you're looking at that and you take into account Vince Peters, like you said, Dave, I think you've probably got 2 or 3 laps now to go until he has to pit. If he runs it any longer than that, I'll be very, very impressed as you see Chris Chatterton going into turn 10 very, very deep. Didn't look like catch that the brakes locked up, but has he managed to avoid anything? He has. The only thing you probably get for that is a very hefty slowdown penalty.
They say you cut the course, you're going to have to give up the time gains, says iRacing. Cody Pride, I wondered what happened to him, because he lost about 2 seconds on that one. Somehow managed to keep that full send racing on the straight and narrow. Lost a good bit of time and is now under pressure from one of the lapped cars behind him. But Jason Dilworth now still on the back of Dan Gilding here for the lead of this race. We're coming about 20 minutes left to go in this 75-minute race, round 7 of the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup Series here with David Christie and David Russell bringing you all of the coverage. Let's have a look at the replay then as we go off, and that is another moment for Cody Pride, who now loses out their position to Arias Yamantes, so 7/10 of a second behind him. And again, Cody Pride he's a bit of a master of his own destruction, isn't he? Because he just pushes so hard and almost a little bit too hard for his own race.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say he pushes it to the limit 9 times out of 10, and it's a thin line. Sometimes things like that are going to happen, and look, he's still potentially. I mean, look, there's still we've got 20 minutes left of the race and a pit stop still to do for every single driver, barring Igor Koss and Simon Underhill. In fact, no, I think Simon Underhill was out of the race. Just looking at the amount of laps he's back, so there's only 2 people who've done potentially both their scheduled pit stops. There's still chance for things to change, but I think even with that in mind, I think he'll take a P4 in class tonight. I think, like say, he had a really, really good showing at Donington last week. Of course, took the win in both of those races, and he's starting to make a bit of fist of the championship. He's level on points of Igor Koss, so he's definitely going to be overtaking him because he's much further back in the class at the moment. He's now got to focus on Stuart Reynolds, who again he's ahead of. Oh! Big moment there for Dan Gilding.
Huge accident for Dan Gilding, gets recovered and going. And just quickly about Simon Underhill, believe it or not, he's still going. Simon Underhill is 15 laps back, but he is still going. Vince Peters into pit lane, and that is a monster of an accident for Jason Dilworth. And I'm going to say it right now, that is a bit awkward for Nomad, because they didn't need to push. they could have easily had a really, really good position, and it just shows you how easy it is to do. And Vince Peters does another 14-second pit stop there, whereas I think, I mean, that's barely anything, isn't it? I wonder if he's taken like enough fuel at the beginning of the race so that all he's had to do is a splash and dash, or really just a quick dive into pit lane. That would be inspired for Vince if he has.
It is an interesting one. It really is. I mean, like I say, again, only he knows, and anyone who's helped him on strategy to know exactly what that plan is. But look, it'd be 16 seconds behind. I mean, well, we'll wait for the timing chart to realign itself accordingly. As you can see, it's just changing rather quickly. I think he's 16 seconds off the back of Nick Madsen, who's leading in class at the moment. So that is an impressive show. I mean, I don't know the exact time lost in the pit lane here at Road Atlanta, but I can imagine just the time in pit lane alone is more than 16 seconds. So it doesn't matter what Nick Madsen does at this stage. He could literally go in, he could stop the car, put a litre of fuel in and go back out again. He's still, in the most likely scenarios, he's going to end up out behind Vince Peters. What he needs to hope for is that Aldrini can last that long enough that Peters catches him up and then slows him down. I think that's the only way at this stage Madsen's got any chance of clawing that 15-second gap back in any way, shape or form.
I'm honestly speechless. I've got no idea how Vince Peters has managed to get that one done, but he has got it done. More to the point then, so James Fierro still in the lead of this Pro-Am battle right now, and again, it's a very, very different looking battle that we've got going on right now, because James Fierro, the privateer, up in the front of that one from the Benzo Racing Machine of Steve Martin, and doing a decent job, but he's coming under a lot of pressure right now. Although Cody Pride gone off track again, losing more time. I fear that is a big accident for Cody Pride. Let's have a look here, and this is into turn one then. Sweeps it out onto the left-hander there, tries to keep it in. Fair play to him, fair play. He's got it going again, and he's not actually lost that much time. That could have been a much heavier accident there for Cody Pride.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's got to keep an eye on Stuart Reynolds behind him now, because that's the kind of person he wants to stay ahead of. No point trying to push too hard and catch up with Dan Sedgley, I think, unless there's an inspired strategy, unless we go see Vince Peters style strategy from Cody Pride. I think he's going to have to settle for fourth place in class, obviously assuming no one else makes a mistake as well. But he needs to think he needs to think bigger picture. Like I said, he's level on points with Igor Costa at the moment, so he will go ahead of him regardless, assuming obviously before the drop scores are taken into account. He will close quite significantly on Stuart Reynolds if he manages to stay ahead of him as well, so it really kind of puts the cat amongst the pigeons towards the back end as well, considering the fact that Cody Pride wasn't actually available for the sprint race a few weeks ago at Watkins Glen. So really impressive stuff from him. He's doing a fantastic job, and he's showing that although he is on the limit a little bit more than others and past it on occasion, he's still got the ability to churn out these results, and he's still very much within a chance of that title. Yeah,
he certainly is, and I'm actually looking at this this pit time for Vince Peters, 30 seconds. So 15 seconds to pit and 15 seconds to come in and leave pit lane. I cannot see any way for Nick Madsen to hold on to this lead right now, as we've got just about 15 minutes left to go in this race. 120.17 for Nick Madsen, especially with the pace that Vince Peters is putting in right now. That last lap, 119.85. But again, we have to wait until all of these pit stops are done and dusted. We'll keep our eye on that here, but again, an astounding performance tonight from Vince Peters. There goes cross line 119.81, and I'm also seeing Francois Aldrini, despite not being able to hold on to that lead, doing a decent job, and able to potentially have a third place, with the fact that Arias Humantis now bringing himself into contention here as well. We've got James Fierro into pit lane, so it looks like now, David, this is going to be go time for the pit stops in the next lap or so.
Yeah, absolutely. 15 minutes to go, or less than 15 minutes to go in the race. It's starting to get to the pointy end of proceedings, and yeah, although there's some gaps on track, we're starting to see those pit stops happen. So James Fierro, we'll see where he comes out in a few moments' time. You can see, I can't see it remote. Well, hopefully we'll see. But you see pit exit. You see just popped up on the time board. So he'll be coming out. There's a marker board being destroyed by, I think that it's not Vince Peters, I was just going to say it's not him, but Nick Madsen you can see into pit lane as well. So that's another one coming into the pit lane to serve his time. This is the big one realistically. As we've both said, I can't see in any way, shape or form how he comes out ahead of Vince Peters, but we'll have to wait and see. Really, it's just a case now of what is going to be the gap between the two. He's in pit lane. He's now stopped. You can see it's changed to pit, and there you go. Literally, as soon as he stopped on his haunches to get the car serviced, Vince Peters is off and away he goes and up into second place. So it is pretty much now confirmed that Vince Peters will take the win this evening. But there's still 15 minutes left, 14 minutes left. If Vince makes a mistake, we've not seen really any of them from him so far this season, but it's still possible. You never know. Stay tuned, because this is not over, no matter how much that gap is at this stage.
What I'm struggling to believe is I think that gap has actually gone down significantly. In fact, no, it's not. It's actually went up, isn't it? Because that is a gap to the person in front. So, yeah, if that gap was about 14, 15 seconds, Vince Peters, I mean, this is an astounding job that Vince has done. And yet again, from the depth of nowhere, Vince Peters absolutely makes it work. So Francois Aldrini currently in the lead of this race, but that is temporarily purely because he still has to do a second pit stop. Vince Peters is going to resume the lead of the race. Steve Martin currently in the lead of the Pro-Ams now, ahead of Dan Sedgley. So that is a turn up for the books there. And he is ahead of Cody Pride as well. Somehow Cody Pride's still in third position. And what the heck has happened to James Fierro? So now wait a minute, that's
I think he's
why.
pitted, isn't he?
Yeah, because the Pro-Ams haven't pitted at all. James Fierro is the only one in the Pro-Ams that has pitted. So when I was thinking that we're all done and dusted here, it's all going to change on its head, given that we've got 30 seconds for a pit stop to happen. Yeah, I can't see there being anyone else than James Fierro that's going to come out on top. And here we go, Arias Yamantis, the last of the pros, into pit lane. And oh no, Igor Kos on that comeback drive, off again, and it looks like a big accident.
Yeah, it's a real shame, but obviously, like I say, plays into the hands of Cody Pride a little bit. We'll see what happened here. I think he's just coming down the back straight. That's an interesting one. It looks like he's, dare I say, that car's looking bent as anything anyway. I don't think it's going to be the easiest thing to keep in a straight line. Oh, in fact, this is what's caused it. Coming out of turn 5, gets onto the grass. You know what it's like in iRace, and that is ice. That's exactly how you'd expect it to be in real life. Gets onto the grass, loses the front end, and that is not pointing out. I was going to make a joke about him using his phone while he's driving, but I can imagine that the steering wheel on that Porsche Cup car is probably not pointing in the right direction. And there you see again, becoming very difficult to handle and off onto the grass again. This is a difficult rejoin. You've got to be very careful on the relative just to make sure you don't make any more incidents come out of that, but he's managed to get away with it without too much issue aside from what he's done to himself. But that is, a dent to the ego and a dent to the front of that Porsche 992 Cup car as well.
Francois Aldrini into to pit lane. And just as an aside, David, right, you said about joking about using his phone while driving. I swear to goodness, something very similar happened a couple of weeks ago on a different broadcast I was doing. It was a GT3 race, and one of the guys had looked over to his chat on his left hand side. The car had drifted over to the right, and he ended up wiping out him and his teammate as the teammate came out of the pit lane, and it was live on stream as well. And you're just like, wow, that is it could happen to anyone, but of all the people to hit, taking out your teammate is just like, geez, that was brutal. And we're talking like a really big name sim racer as well. It was brutal to watch, but again, it just shows concentration is needed for such a long amount of time here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the cardinal sin, I suppose you'd call it, isn't it? Taking out your teammate in any race, whether it's on purpose or, it should never be on purpose. Let's put that out there. But even if it was as an accident, Steve Martin, just looking at that now, he's done his second pit stop now. He's the second of the final 5 Pro-Am drivers to make their pit stop. He's actually come out ahead of Jaime Fierro. He was a few tenths behind before the pit stop. You can see them on camera now. So he's managed to get the move done in the pit stops. He's managed to commit the overcut and worked it to perfection, which is something that we haven't seen from other people, especially Mick Madsen and Aldrini. They've come back even further behind. In fact, Madsen's gained a little bit of time on Peters, but nothing really in the grand scheme of things. Aldrini, however, was a second quicker in the pit stop phase than Madsen was, but he's lost 3 or 4 seconds in that final stint. So it looks like, subject to any major mistakes, as you see Cody Pride and Stuart Reynolds come into pit lane as well, that the pro class standings have been wrapped up. The real big one now is this one on screen. Who is going to come out on top between Jaime Fierro and Steve Martin in that Pro-Am class over the next 9 minutes?
Well, it looks like Cody Pride and Stuart Reynolds into pit lane, then Cody Pride back out. And as you said, that gap coming down very, very slightly there as Ares Yamantis goes off the track and has himself a little bit of a mischief, and I think he has stopped out on track. So Ares Yamantis has presumably hit a rather large object, presumably a wall. We'll get a replay here. This is on the entry to turn 1. And the back end sweeps out, tries to keep the foot in, Does he make it? He's almost made it, so he's not hit a wall. He's got going again. So, okay, right, well, I was maybe wrong on that one. I just saw the timing screen, saw him off track and presumed that the loss of time would be him into the barriers. But he did keep it going. But again, it's not really done him much good. But still, decent points for 4th place in Pro Class tonight. And again, like I was saying, I mean, it's 3 points for a lot of these drivers as we've got just about 7 minutes left to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, when that replay first came up, I thought exactly the same. You thought the worst. He's gone wide. He's gone far too wide, and it looked like he was in a one-way ticket to that tyre wall on the left-hand side. He somehow managed to, like I say, just kept his foot in it and somehow managed to stop it from hitting it, which is rather impressive, all things considered. But it is, yeah, like you said, you're looking at the likes of Thomas Goldalian. Obviously, he started on pole. Yes, he lost a couple of positions early doors and dropped back a little bit, but he's missed out on some big points, as has Laurent Benzo, for not being able to finish his race. You'd think, again, it's difficult when you're in the car. I've been in the position myself where if you have got damage and it comes up and it says 2 minutes of repairs or whatever it might be, and you've got to get it towed back, and you've lost 3 or 4 laps at that point, it can be quite difficult to kind of sum up the want and desire to come back and race for the next hour or so, knowing that you're not going to get into any battles. But it's one of those things, you've got to take the championship into consideration. There was some big points on offer. There's 70 points, I think it is, for finishing 5th, 65 for 6th in class, something like that. That's a lot of points you've missed out on, and it's a big thing. Dan Sedgley, you see in the pit lane there, but Jaime Fierro back on. He's really closed the gap. I think he's got the pace on Steve Martin. He's just lost it through the pit stop phase. So this is going to get very, very spicy indeed. You can see just how close they are. This battle for the top in class, assuming Sedgley comes up behind him, of course, is starting to hot up again.
I think he will. I think he will come out behind him, because he's coming out now, in fact, just beside Steve Martin then and Jaime Fierro. So Sedgley goes down to 3rd position. He's going to come right out just behind this lot. Maybe not too far away, but either way, Steve Martin, as we see up the inside there, what on earth happened there with the two of them? So back on board with Dan Sedgley, but what happened with Jaime Fierro and Steve Martin? That is a very, very peculiar case there. Cody Pride is still trying to fight in with it here. So let's have a look here. Jaime Fierro onto the entry of turn 1 here. Now, is it too hot from Jaime Fierro? Or is it just that Steve Martin a little bit slower than you'd expect going through? It is on, there's a bit of contact. That's a bit naughty there from Jaime Fierro, completely unintended. But that obviously pushes Steve Martin out wide, and what's happened is James just let off the accelerator, let him take the position as a way of apology. Absolutely no intention in that whatsoever, but just shows the incredible closing speed that Jaime Fierro has got. And I've got to be honest, I think Steve Martin is in a very, very good position here.
Yeah, absolutely. He's looking pretty good. Obviously, of course, he's still got another 5 minutes left. So that's what going to be. I mean, I don't know exactly where.
David, I'm sorry to jump in. I hate doing this, but what the hell happened to Vince Peters last lap? 122.59. Nick Maidson 120.03. That gap is under 10 seconds. Vince Peters isn't known for normally managing the gap. Or this explains it. Into turn 1, and he goes quite wide. So that is an uncharacteristic error there from Vince Peters.
Yeah, not the kind of thing you'd expect to see. Fortunately, doesn't get caught up with. I think that's one of the Nomad sim racing drivers just behind him. So, yeah, the gap's falling. I did say anyone is susceptible to mistakes. They can look as impervious as you like, but anyone can make a mistake on their day. Look, if you take it into the grand scheme of things, he's got to make another very big mistake in order for Madsen to get that position. But it's the sign of some human tendencies in Vince Peters, shall we say? Especially when you look at the helmet in the car, which we picked up on last week. But yeah, I'm keeping a very keen eye. You can see it on the, obviously, you see Mike Gow, broadcast director, doing the same thing on this Pro-Am battle. Hayden Fierro, he's dropped back a little bit after that coming together. And like you said, David, I don't think there was any malice in there whatsoever. It was just a case of a little bit too much closing speed. Didn't expect Steve to be, I don't want to say as slow through the corner as expected, but slower than he probably initially thought he'd be. That's bringing Dan Sedgley back into the mix as well. He's 1.7 seconds back. So if these two do start to battle a little bit more, there's going to be some. There's going to be a three-way fight for the lead with 4 laps left to go. It's really hotting up again.
Well, it certainly is, but I'm wondering about Shane Fierro because, again, I say that he drops back, but look at how much time he closes up to Steve Martin on that section there alone. But again, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think that Steve Martin might have this in the bag, and as soon as I had concerns about Vince Peters here, David, he's only gone and answered them 2 laps in a row, 1:19.6, 1:19.7. So Vince Peters has absolutely nothing to worry about, I can assure you on that one. 3 minutes left to go in the race here. Round 7 of the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup. And it has been another very curious, very enthralling affair. Vince Peters in the lead of this race from Nick Mountain and Francois Aldrini in Pro Class. In Pro-Am, it's Steve Martin, the very unlikely leader in the lead of the Pro-Ams right now, ahead of Shane Fierro and Dan Sedgley. And then in the Ams, it's Jason Dilworth from Ryan Hamilton and Chris Chatterton. And we're going to have about, I would imagine, 2 laps left to go here at Road Atlanta, the famous home of the Petit Le Mans. So yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to this, and not too much longer left to go.
Absolutely starting to into the final knockings. I think it's fair to say, see Jason Dilworth, like you say, leading the AM class, where he's got Eric Schimantis ahead of him on track, and that's another car ahead of him on track as well. I believe that is Stuart Reynolds, I think. Just trying to tell by the shape of the car. Yes, it is the number 35 car. Stuart Reynolds ahead of them. So that's, funnily enough, that is AM class with Pro in front and then Pro in front of them as well. So not the kind of order you'd expect to see them in, but interesting to see them mixing as well. Fierro is still really, really close behind on track. And like you said, David, he's got pace in certain areas of track, but then he seems to lose a bit of it. If he can keep it nice and clean and tidy through the first sector, which he seems like he hasn't done over the last couple of laps, there's every likelihood he can make the move. He's within 0.3 of a second now. Essentially, he's dropped back to just under 2. Is there still a chance for a move? There's 2-3 laps left. Fierro's got to get that move done soon, but he's also got to be aware of the fact that if he gets ahead of Martin on the penultimate lap, there's every likelihood that Steve Martin just breezed past him in a slipstream on the final lap on the back straight.
What's happened to Dan Gilding again? Let's just not say anything about that. Dan Gilding has gone from having a great night to having a bit of a rubbish night. That didn't go well. Right, so let's have a look here. Oh my god, that's Corey Pride. That's into the wall, and that is round and round and around the corner. Corey Pride down into 5th position in class, 11th place overall then. And we have got about a minute left to go, and Stuart Reynolds very, very lucky that he just goes sailing on by to Corey Pride there. Eric Benson looks like he's had another moment again. That is out of turn number 8 and went a little bit off track there. Let's have a look then. So 15 seconds left to go. It looks like this is going to be the last lap of the race then, because Vince Peters has got about 3/4 of the lap left to go. It's been a brilliant run for him. I think it's safe to say he is going to take this race win again here. So after that then, the question is, can Shane Fierro make the move on Steve Martin? 0.4 of a second in between those two just now, but it is all about this man here, and rightfully so. We've been a little bit quiet when talking about him because obviously you don't want to jinx anything, you don't want to twist fate there. And Nick Mason's gone off track very, very slightly, hasn't lost too much time, but went off track there. Probably just skipping a couple of corners there, down into the chicane for the final time then for Vince Peters for Volante Racing. And again, it feels like such a common thing to be saying, but Vince Peters comes round the final corner, a little jink of the tail of that Porsche Cup car, and surely that is it. It is, the checker flag flies. It's a win for Vince Peters here on round 7 of the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup. Steve Martin then just ahead of James Fierro. This is going to try and be a dive into the inside here. We've not got too much left to go for them. They're halfway around the circuit just now, and James Fierro looking very, very fighty indeed. Lose a couple of tenths out there. Jason Dilworth crosses the line because of course he got a lap down. So Jason Dilworth, Ryan Hamilton, Chris Chariton is 1, 2, 3. And what's happened? James Fierro has had an accident on the final lap of the race, David. That is horrible to see there. And that means that Dan Sedgley now takes second place, and it didn't look like the two of them were close enough for that to have been contact.
No, it was a bit weird. I was actually just about to say, I looked on the relative just before we cut back to him. You can see him going through very heavy on the curb, going into turn 7. Just a little bit misses the apex slightly, and oh yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? Obviously, look, we know the electronics are lacking in these Porsche Cup cars, and that is a classic situation of, I want the race win. I need to push as hard as I possibly can. I'm going to put my foot down as early as possible, and that's the kind of thing that happens. Really unfortunate. He had a fantastic run going into there, but yeah, just a little bit too heavy on the loud pedals. Humantis shoving it, throwing the car into a spin after finishing the race himself, 4th in class in the pros. But that is, yeah, heartbreaking for Jaime Fierro. He was in the lead of the class at the start. He got it back at the end. Middle of the race, sorry, lost it towards the end through the pit stop phase. Then just so unfortunate, just a bit too eager on the loud pedal, and loses second place as a result. But still, fortunately for him, still gets a podium, just about.
Yep, certainly is. So there we go, confirmation of the race results then. Vince Peters takes the win for Volante Racing, with Nick Maidson in second place there. Francois Aldrini in third, Eric Humantis in fourth for the Pro Class, fifth place for Thomas Gurlian in the Pro Class, and then Laurent Benzo finishing 45 and 48 laps down, goodness me. Steve Martin taking the win for Pro-Am class tonight, with Dan Sedgley in second, James Fierro in third, Stuart Reynolds in fourth, Cody Pride in fifth position, Igor Kos in sixth, and Harry Wills in seventh for Pro-Am. Moving on to the AM then, it's Jason Dilworth from Ryan Hamilton. It could have been a Nomad 1, 2, 3. Dan Gilding, though, having a horrible time, spinning out several times and goes 3 laps down. Chris Chatterton takes third position. Eric Benson finishes fourth, and Simon Underhill in sixth, with Dean Timms 43 laps down. So that's how they finish here tonight at Road Atlanta. David, that was an interesting evening, and certainly lots to talk about. But I've always jumped in with the interviews, and I think tonight, David, I'm going to let you loose with all of the drivers.
Very kind of you. I think we can see Jason Dilworth sitting very patiently, hoping to have a chat with us. Jason, welcome in this evening, buddy. Congratulations, first of all, on the AM class win. One thing I'll come to straight away. You were obviously sat behind Dan for a little while through the race, and he had that rather heavy incident with the wall. We were talking about it on the stream midway through the race. Were you kind of egging him on at any point during that race, just kind of trying to put him off a little bit?
Hi, yeah, and thanks first, and great stream as always. I've just watched a tiny little bit of it, and but the engineer was watching it, and he said he was great. Yeah, that Dan stuff, I feel really bad because maybe I was putting a bit too much pressure on him. We don't have like team orders or anything going on. It still feels early in the championship, so there was nothing like that. But yeah, I did want to overtake him at some point. I was hoping to do it at the next pit stop more than anything else. I was sort of fuel saving and just trying to sit there in his tow. But yeah, it turns out he was feeling the pressure and had an unfortunate moment, and I feel pretty bad about that. We could have had a really nice 1, 2, 3, and Simon had a similar thing earlier. He'd graciously let me through, and then I think maybe succumbed to the pressure of trying to stay in that tow as well. So really happy with our team result, but then also feeling quite down about the fact that it could have been a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, yeah, that's completely fair enough. Of course, personally, from your perspective, of course, that throws, well, I think it's probably fair to say you're already in contention for the Class Championship, but that throws you a little bit closer in, doesn't it? Of course, Ryan obviously finishing in P2 behind you and Chris finishing in P3, but that gives you just a couple of points on them and starts to narrow things up. Is that something you've got an eye on coming into the final 3 rounds?
Yeah, definitely. I think we all do this because we want to win something, and it would be nice to think that I'm in contention to win it. It's nice that we've finished in the opposite to the way the championship was, so it's definitely all compressed. Again, would have been nicer for Dan and Simon to be somewhere in between me, Ryan, and Chris. But yeah, I mean, it's good. Looks good for the last 3 rounds. I haven't seen what the other championships are like, but I know this one feels like it's going to go right down to the last one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Pro-Am one is looking the same way as well. So it'd be interesting to see how things go in the last couple of races. Final thing, just before we turn our attention to the race next week at Monza, David and I were talking about it in the broadcast as well. Obviously, being a night race, you've obviously got different kind of things to look at. In combination between a night race and Road Atlanta, how difficult was it out there this evening to spot some of those more difficult apexes? Of course, a lot of undulations around this track. How was it from your perspective driving out with the lights on tonight?
It felt okay. As a team, Prestanda Nomad are very focused on the endurance stuff, so we do a lot of night racing. I don't know whether that helps on things like this, and we did carve out a bit of time in between practice for Daytona this weekend to really make sure we got some laps in here, all of us. So by the time the race came around, it felt fine. The first few laps are definitely a bit sketchy.
That's always the case, especially in these cup cars, isn't it? And well, look, we'll talk about. We'll wish you good luck for the 24-hour in a minute. But before heading to Monza, I know you guys. I've obviously we've spoken to some of the other guys in the team as well, including yourself before. And I know there's quite a very heavy schedule in terms of making sure you guys are up to speed, which is clearly doing wonders. By the way, I'll mention that right now. When does practice start for Monza, and how are you guys feeling ahead of that? Are you feeling confident that you can continue this good run of form?
Yeah, I hope we can. Practice for Monza is going to be difficult now because Daytona is a big focus. We've recently relaunched the team, and we are focused on the endurance stuff. So there is a big focus from tonight till Sunday, and there obviously has been in the last couple of weeks on Daytona. In all honesty, I'll probably do my first laps at Monza on Monday. And hope for the best. Done a lot of laps there, not so much in the cup car. And, we'll just see how it goes, and maybe I'll talk to you next week and talk about how much I regret not doing some earlier.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations again on the win, Jason. Good work from you tonight, and best of luck in the 24-hour at the weekend, and hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to you again in the same position next week.
Yeah, hopefully, and thanks as always, you guys, for doing such a great job.
Fantastic stuff. Lovely to hear from Jason there, of course, Class winner in this evening's racing here at Road Atlanta. David, nice to hear from them, and nice to see that he's been very honest about his preparations for next week, despite the fact they're fighting on 2 fronts in the championship.
Yeah, fantastic thing though, isn't it, that David, that their schedules are so packed. There's obviously so many different events over so many different platforms. Of course, you've got one of the biggest events of the year coming up for iRacing, the Daytona 24. It is a very, very prestigious event, and a lot of teams like taking part in that just for the camaraderie, for the event itself. And I've got to be honest, I'm not going to miss it this year. I'll be quite happy that I'm elsewhere doing some decorating this weekend in real life. So first year missing it out, but it'll be interesting to see, David, how quickly they can come back on Monday and get their teeth into Monza, which very quickly we have to talk on. I mean, it's a bit of a meme in itself, is it, in online racing terms? Is it racing online if it's not a pile up into turn one?
Absolutely, yeah. Fortunately, these guys seem to be in the main. They're pretty good into turn one at most corners, because today wasn't necessarily. It's not really a turn one, I don't think, personally, for big moves and big sends and stuff like that a lot of the time. But yeah, be interesting to see how they get on. it's a favourite of a lot of people. I'm personally a big fan of it, more so in sports cars now than I was in, say, Formula 1, for example, in the past. I think it really lends itself to sports car racing really nicely. So, yeah, looking forward to it as always. Of course, back to the sprint format, and that always throws up brilliant action. Look back to Donington last week as one of the many examples we've got. And, yeah, if we see anything like we have done in the sprint races up until now, then we're going to be in for 2 more fantastic races next week, and maybe a few more twists and turns in the championship story.
I will certainly say, and just to before we go, I wanted to give our viewers a little insight into the banter that goes on with the drivers in the drivers' chat. A little discussion going on just now between Nick Maidson and Francois Algrady, where there's a little bit of aggro going on there, and I cannot wait to see that continuing out on track at Monza next week on Tuesday night. So very much looking forward to that. A huge thank you as always to our broadcast team behind the scenes, Mike out, giving us all the beautiful angles and visuals that you've seen tonight. A huge thank you to you out there for watching, and a huge thank you to David Dressel in the commentary box for joining me tonight. Join us next week then for round 8 of the Porsche, the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup Series, and until then, I'm David Christie. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.